Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kawkab, and I'm a convert to Islam for almost 24 years now. Before I was Muslim, I was baptized Greek Orthodox, and I went to a Catholic high school. So I had a lot of different religious backgrounds in there. I studied different religions. I searched for about 7 years. I had a book of questions. And then when I met the Muslims and I started asking my questions, everything just made sense. And for the first time, I got my questions answered. Who is God? Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? You know, things that were out there that nobody wanted to answer, or said were mysteries. They couldn't explain things to me in a way that made sense. Catholic priests had talked to me about things. Other pastors and people, nothing made sense. And their attitude, the way they dealt with me was not the same as the demeanor of the Muslims. They were, it was markedly different. So for me, it wasn't just learning about Islam, it was learning about the people, about the culture, about how they treat one another. That made a huge impact on me.
When Kawkab has a problem, when Kawkab has difficulties in her daily life, she comes to us as Muslims. She doesn't go to her family, she gets her support from us. I mean, it's really nice to see that Muslim community is very strong and we help each other, we support each other.
The concept of God was very bizarre growing up. I didn't understand how 3 could equal 1. And so when I heard about Islam and they told me about all the attributes of God, this was like eye-opening. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. So for me, it was a matter of my mind and my heart accepting something, because my mind couldn't accept all the other things that I had looked into, and I looked into a lot of things. I was working in a place with a friend, and she had known she moved to another location in her work. And I went to visit her, and I met my future husband at that time. I met him, and we were talking, and he said, I'm starting Ramadan next month. And I said, what's Ramadan? So he said, well, I'm Muslim. And he gave me like a few things. And then he said, you know, I'm learning my religion too. Even though he was born and raised Muslim, he had started learning when he was in California. So he had some friends come over, and they came down from Canada, and I brought my book of questions, and they sat for 4 hours straight, and I drilled them question after question after question, and they were very nice.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
There were 2 things that attracted me. The first was the explanation about God. That made sense to me. All the other things I heard hadn't. And the second thing was they brought everything from Adam all the way through Prophet Muhammad together. That succession of prophets made sense. That God would teach us, give us one religion, and we would be taught by people who would then teach their followers. And so that made sense. And the attributes of the prophets, and that they were special and chosen, and all of those things kind of fell into place. It's almost like the puzzle pieces finally came together. So I think it was really the basic belief of Islam, the belief in God and the belief in the prophets. After the 4 hours of them sitting very politely and asking questions, and I was like drilling them, they said, do you have any more questions? So then I started learning about Islam, and within about 6 months, I embraced Islam.
I know Kawkab for more than 25 years now. I remember the first time when I saw her 26 years ago. I was pregnant and she wasn't a Muslim back then. She was looking at me and the way I dress, and everything was new to her. She was really very, interesting in asking questions about the religion and all this, and she wants the logic behind this.
When I became Muslim, it was a struggle for my family. At first, I didn't tell them. I was working for my father, and he asked me to do something which was sinful to do. And I told him, no, I'm not going to do that. And he said, I'm telling you, you're working for me, you need to do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. So he said, you became Muslim, didn't you? I said, yeah, I did. And he said, I'm calling your mother. So he called my mom, and she's not any religion. She was raised in foster homes. Her bloodline is Jewish, but she never embraced anything. And so she told me, Angie, I'm telling you to do this now. She remembered my American name. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So my dad was screaming and my mom was screaming, and she came down to the work, and it was an ugly scene. And then things got worse from there. When I started wearing the scarf, my mom didn't go out in public with me for more than 10 years. Any event for the family, I couldn't be invited to because I had to wear my scarf to go in public, and my mom wouldn't be there when I was there, so I was excluded from the family. My dad's side of the family completely disowned me. My mother's side of the family didn't want to fight with my mom. They disowned me. She told me later it was as if I was saying the way she raised me was wrong. And I tried to explain to her, but I found the truth myself. So it was a difficult thing for my mom to accept. Something happened, and then I got divorced, and then my mom realized, I think it hit home for her that I didn't become Muslim for anyone except myself. Even though I'd become Muslim about 1.5 years before I got married, when I got divorced and my mom saw that I was still raising my children in an Islamic environment, and I was staying Muslim, and she realized this is who I am, and she came to terms with herself. She called me and she said, you know, I've been prejudiced against my own daughter. And she realized that, and she just asked to wipe the whole slate clean, and we just started over. So it was her realization that she had done something to me, that I hadn't changed other than my religion, was still the same daughter. So I think it was something she had to find within herself, and she did eventually.
The next year when I came back for vacation to stay in the States, I knew that she was a Muslim. We were, you know, friends for a long time. We baked together, we cooked together. For Kawkab, we are like her family because she had, you know, a very hard time dealing with her family because she became a Muslim. And to me also, she's a big support. Even my parents, when they come to visit me from Jordan, they told me, this is more than a sister to you. She was with me during sad times, good times. She's a good Muslim. And really, really, I didn't see any other person who is very keen to practice the rules of the religion than Kawkab. I'm very pleased and blessed to have her as a friend.
So till this day, I just have my younger sister. We're in contact. We see each other often. And my parents, everything's great now. It's been quite a few years, but it's really good now. And they accept that. They know, you know, that I am the way I am, and I'm happy in my life, and now they've accepted that. So we go out in public. We do everything normally as we used to before all of that happened. But it was a really rough 10 years. So when I made a decision to become Muslim, I had learned before, so I knew how my life was going to change, and I had prepared myself for that. If I'm going to become Muslim, I'm going to practice. So I want to understand, what do I have to do? What's praying? What's fasting? How do I live my life? So for me, the changes were my choice, and since they were my choice, that was easier. Dealing with people's reaction to me was a shock. I had learned about prejudice in school. Nobody ever said anything to me about that I was, you know, different in any way. If I was with Mexican people, I looked Mexican. With Italians, I looked Italian. With Greeks, I looked Greek. I always fit in. But when I started wearing my scarf, I felt prejudice the first time, and I think that was the hardest thing for me. Not so much, you know, learning how to pray. It was exciting. Learning all of the things about Islam, I loved that learning. But the hard part was their reaction to me. There's a lot of things that I do that are just like everybody else. Most things that I do are like everybody else. But it's something that people don't understand. Like, you exercise, you work out, you take walks. It's normal things that everybody does. But because you're different, they think all the things you do are different. I had some very bad experiences when I started wearing my scarf. The first time I started wearing it around people I would never see again. So I went to a store and I went to buy something. And I usually pull the change out of my purse because it's tight to look for the coins. And so it's a habit. I've done it since I was little. I put the coins in my hand and I went to pay, and the woman said, "That's a quarter." She spoke to me, and I thought, oh my God, she thinks I don't understand. So it was just the shock. Till this day, I don't know if I ran out of the store without the item or what, but she shocked me so much. I cried in the car. I'm like, oh my God, she thinks I'm stupid. So that was my first real traumatic experience. And then I started wearing it around people that, you know, were acquaintances. I wouldn't really, you know, didn't care really what they thought. And that was a little bit easier. And then I needed to start wearing it to work. And actually a non-Muslim friend of mine, she came with me to work the day I wore it the first time, and she said, she stopped me as we were going in and she said, stop being nervous. If this is the way you want to live your life, it's up to everybody else to deal with it. So if you feel comfortable, they're going to feel comfortable. And that was the best piece of advice I ever got. I've had people want to throw things at me, curse me, tell me I'm a terrorist, call me a sand nigger, very bad things. I've had people throw cokes at me while I'm walking in the parking lot with my children when they were young. People telling me to go back to my country. I told them I'm American. So yeah, people, it's ignorance and you learn to deal with it. And now it doesn't faze me at all now. It just realized that there are people who don't understand things, and when they don't understand things, they fear them. And so I learned to deal with that better. And as I learned to deal with it better, I didn't take their feelings on. And that made it easier for me. I didn't cry as much. I didn't think, you know, how am I going to make people understand I'm not like that? You know, now when I go in for a job interview, you can see a person size you up. You know, they look from head to toe and they think, uh-oh. And then there's other people who are very kind and they, you know, don't look at it, and they treat you like any other person. But there's all different types of people in the world, and you just learn to deal with them. I had a recent experience where I was called back from my resume. They liked it. I spoke with a gentleman. He was very pleased with my background. And when I went to meet him, he brought me into another room to meet with apparently a supervisor who was a woman who was higher than him. And she conducted the interview with him there. And she literally looked me from head to toe, and I could tell in her eyes she made a split-second decision about me. She just didn't like what she saw. I'm there, I'm covered, I'm wearing a skirt, it's too long for today's fashion. She made a snap judgment, and every question, every time I said something, she said, you know, as if I was offending her, as if I had no answer for why my career is where it is today. I mean, questions were just, I've never had a bad interview like that. Once somebody gets to know you, it's much easier because they can look past the scarf and see that it's the way you dress. It's, you know, some people dress one way, some people dress another way. But if they don't give you the opportunity to speak, to hear that you're articulate, to look at your resume and see your education, your experience, they just look at you and they make a decision. She had just received my resume. In California, when 9/11 happened, I happened to be living in Pennsylvania. It was worse for me during the Kuwaiti War when I was living in California. I had people run me off the road. Men would take their shirts and roll them up over their head and laugh and say ugly things. It was bad. The women in the community, in the Islamic community, couldn't go out at night by themselves. People were abusive. But during 9/11, I happened to be in Pennsylvania at that time working in a big corporation, and the people were very kind with me. They knew me from working with me. They said, do you want us to take you home? Are you sure you're going to be safe? They were really, really nice. So it was completely different seeing how it was handled in the Kuwaiti War and how it was handled in 9/11. By 9/11, there were a lot more Muslims in a lot of different areas, and I think people start, you know, now they see us and they're like, oh, okay. Back when I first started wearing my scarf 20 years ago, 24 years ago, I mean, it was mothers bringing their children away from me in a grocery store thinking, I don't know, I have guns with me or something. I don't know what they were thinking. And I would say hi, and I would speak in English, and they'd be shocked. And I'm like, I'm American. I just dress like this because of my religion. Don't be scared. And I would try to talk with the kids or the parents. Some people were understanding, some people weren't, but it was very different when I first started wearing my scarf because there weren't large Muslim communities. Today, it's very different. You find Islamic stores, you find markets, you find people, you find communities where, you know, it's so common that people don't look twice. They're, you know, it's like, okay, whatever. So it's a very different world today than it was 24 years ago. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I started learning about Islam from an Arab-speaking gentleman who was translating from from Arabic material into English material. So they had very few people in California when I embraced Islam in our community, and then the community started to grow. So as it grew, and they reached out to other, I guess, chapters of the Association of Islamic Charitable Projects, AICP, the organization where I learned from. They sent me to someone who spoke English and had materials in English, and they retaught me about the Tawheed and the Fiqh. And then I took that material and I started teaching. And then over the years, I've helped edit the summary of the obligatory knowledge in English. I've worked on several documents for our association on the editorial staff. So I've learned from many people, especially Sheikh Samir al-Qadi, who was living in Pennsylvania at the time that I was there. So for 5 straight years, we got Islamic teaching. I've been teaching Islam since 1988 to non-Arab speakers, and I teach them the Tawheed and the Fiqh. So I teach them the basic belief and the rules of the religion. And I've been doing this, like I said, since 1988. I've had large classes, small classes, one-on-one. I've done it on the phone. Today, I teach 2 classes. I take 1 class and teach 2 classes. So I have some college girls that I'm teaching now. They were raised in an Arab home, but not a Muslim Arab home. So they never learned their religion until their 20s.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hafsa and I'm living in California. I'm planning on getting a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology by 2013, and I plan to go on med school after that, inshallah. I met Kokab when she started teaching me Islamic lessons, and she's a very friendly, mashallah. She's a great woman, mashallah. She's very happy, always smiling, yeah. I think it's pretty spectacular that Kokab, as a Muslim convert, is teaching me, a person who's born Muslim, Islam. It's a real accomplishment for her, I think, mashallah, and inshallah from the knowledge I learn, I'll teach other people someday as well.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Layla Divini. I was born and raised in California, and currently I'm teaching, but I'm going to be going to graduate school next year. I first met Kokab because we were interested in taking lessons about Islam, and she became our Islam teacher. Well, being born and raised here and spending a lot of time, obviously here in California as a Muslim, I think a lot of people have many questions about Islam, especially post 9/11. They want to know a lot of information. I think a lot of people are apprehensive, and it takes time for them to get used to the idea of Muslims being part of American society. I think that American society is composed of not just one religion, but many religions, and people are more interested in learning more rather than fearful, I think, for the most part.
People are concerned, or they have a friend or somebody from school, and they're like, can I bring them to one of your lessons? Can we talk about this? Can you answer their questions? So it's, we try to do it as informally as possible to make people feel comfortable about talking about things they don't know about. So teaching the religion is a rewardable deed. So anytime you have the opportunity to do it, it's good.
Kokab has been a great teacher, and her knowledge base is quite extraordinary. She has a lot of knowledge, and if she can't answer a question, she always asks somebody else for us.
I also teach a young married couple. The girl has been Muslim for quite some time, and her husband embraced Islam recently. So I've been teaching the 2 of them together. So she's reviewing and he's learning, and it's a really nice experience. I enjoy teaching them. So I teach 2 classes. I teach them at the Islamic Center in Anaheim, California. And I've also taught lessons in my home. I've taught lessons in other people's homes. So it's been a long period of teaching. Sometimes I have more classes than other times.
I've known Kokab since I was 7 years old. My friends, my uncle, my family, they were all her friends also. She came in to join us, and we took lots of care and support of our Muslim community. I've always went to her house, helped her with her kids. Before that, she taught me. ما شاء الله بسم الله عليها كوكب. She converted to Islam with, you know, all her will. She taught, she learned, and she always wanted to learn more and more and never gave up. Kawkab is a very special person. She's very special to me. Since I've known her since I was 7 years old, and all these years, I mean, she's seen me grow, get married, have kids, and until now, we've been, you know, friends and in contact.
حب كوكب لأولادها متجذر بعمق في قلبها. إن تربية ولدين اعتمادا على نفسها هو تحد حقيقي، وكان إيمانها السر في نجاحها.
The hardest years were the teenage years. It's the time when they defy their parents and things like that. I want to do this. I don't understand why I can't go here, why I can't stay out late, why I can't have this friend. So I think, that was hard for me. I had to teach them how to choose the right friends. Today, I don't worry about that. My kids know that if they lose my trust, they have to earn it back. And if I don't like one of their friends, like there's things I see in them, I talk to them. I tell them, I saw some things I don't like. And if they can explain to me why what I saw was different from what I perceived, then I'm open to that. But there are some friends I've had to say, I don't want you to be friends with that person. This is not a good person to have in your life. You're going to go down the wrong path. So I think that respect that we ingrained in our kids, they knew when to push and when not to push. So the friend thing was a little bit hard, picking the right friends, especially going into high school. It's a tough time in kids' lives, and they start to do things that you don't want them to do. So we just, stayed on top of them and tried to, keep guiding them and giving them options other than the things that kids who were going the wrong way chose. So yeah, teenage years, because they're rebellious. So Habibi, how was your first day?
Alhamdulillah, my first day was great. How was your day today?
It was busy. Did you like your new job?
Yeah, it was good. It's not difficult to operate in society while being Muslim, because being on the path of Islam is just a way to operate through your life, and it's a path that you take just like life. So it's very easy to get by in America as long as you do what you have to do and stay away from the bad things. Yeah, I have many non-Muslim friends. I went to a public high school in America, and I made a lot of friends. I'm very personable. People seem to like me. Some of my friends were accepting, like they understood, and they don't stop me from the things that I need to do. Most of my friends, the ones that I still talk to, actually remind me to pray sometimes, and they know that I don't eat non-halal meat, and it's very easy to hang out with them, like they've become accustomed to it. But I mean, some people, there's always the hard people who don't understand and are afraid of what they don't know and don't get, so they just didn't stay in my life because I had no need for them. It wasn't worth it to have somebody bring you down and when you can move forward in life. Just being a good Muslim has helped extremely while I'm down and not feeling as if I have a way out of things, just reminding myself to pray and do the good deeds, and it really helps you. It really gives you motivation in life to get out there and fix yourself and to better yourself in many ways.
It's funny, most people don't know I'm Muslim when they meet me because I'm so like a normal guy. So like later on they'll find out, like I'll say something, or I don't eat this, or I don't do that, and they'll be like, what do you mean? And I'll be like, oh, I'm Muslim, and they'll be like, no, like no one believes me. So but and they accept it like immediately because it's such a non-issue, because I act like them so much that it doesn't like register. Like I don't come wearing a turban or like doing like siwak all the time in front of them, so they're not like surprised, like they're just a regular guy. Living in America, there's a lot of things to do. You can have a lot of fun. There's so many things you can do. So we always end up going to the movies or going to hang out with friends. We have dinner, this, that, hang out with Muslims, non-Muslims, and it's not a big deal, because as long as you don't go to a situation where like inherently there's haram in it, then you're good. You keep your heart pure and you keep the situation you're in good, and you're fine. But when someone's not a Muslim, you always feel like there's that emptiness, and so like when they see it in us, they're just like, oh, like even other Muslims, because me and my friends, like we follow more than most people, so they see us and they say like you guys are so good together, you're good friends, you do this, you do that, you always advise each other, so they want to be like us, and it's cool. It's a really nice environment to be in, and it's nice to be like the person you are all the time. The way I was raised is the way I'd like to raise my children, so I think that, you know, as long as I find a woman who's as good as my mom or better, and I turn out like my parents, then inshallah I'll raise my kids just fine.
سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر صدق الله العظيم.
Sayyidina Ali said like that people are asleep, like most people are asleep, and when they wake up, like when they die, that's when they wake up. So I think like if you can live your life as if you're awake, that's the best thing you can do, and Islam is what provides that. If you really follow the religion, then you can be awake all the time.
من كل أمر سلام هي
I think
حتى مطلع.
more people are becoming Muslim in America because they're hearing the truth about Islam. They're not hearing, you know, they're willing to listen beyond what the media is saying, beyond the negative things that are being said, trying to find out what is it about, what made you become Muslim, why did you do this thing? Because they used to think it's something from the East, it's something from those people. And now when you see, you know, blonde hair, blue-eyed people becoming Muslim, you see, you know, like your neighbors are Muslim, you see so many Muslim people, you're like, what is that? I think that's why. I think it's the era of getting knowledge, of being willing to talk with people instead of fearing them. I'm very happy to be Muslim. I'm very happy to be in America as a Muslim. I don't feel uncomfortable with being Muslim. There are things that are difficult, like finding work, especially now. It is difficult for a Muslim to find work today. But I don't regret ever becoming Muslim. I don't regret raising my children Muslim or being a practicing Muslim walking in the community. It's a good thing. It's not an unhappy thing at all.
الله أكبر.